Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Monday Night Live with me, Dana Hayes-Burke, the Vision Builder. I know that this has been a long, long time coming, and I'm very, very excited that we are finally here. So this may be a bit of nostalgia for those of you who were a part of the OG Monday Night Live family. And for those of you who are new to this, welcome. This is in fact, one of my favorite things to do, one of my favorite spaces. I always tell folks that when it comes to my gift, my true gift is in teaching. And so every time I have the opportunity to teach you guys something in the area of business, in the area of vision, in the area of getting things done the way that you want to get it done, I am always excited to do that. So if you are here with me live, just say hi in the chat. I just got the live chat open so that I know that you're here with me. If you're watching the replay, please comment on the replay. I know that in a sense we're building this from scratch, and that's okay because there are times when you do need to build it from scratch. Hi, Natasha. Hi. Oh my God, I'm very excited. There are times when we really just need to build things from scratch again. And for me, that means that I have been thinking long and hard about how to get back into the space and to add value, but without just the rat race of Instagram and everything else. And I shared a lot about that on my blog and for those of you who are on my email list. And so if you saw it, you know what I'm talking about. If you haven't, you could always check it out. But I am just really happy to have figured out how to do this and to be very clear in my spirit that this is the time. I didn't want to be another one of those voices that's just crowding the internet space. So welcome. I see we have a few of us on, not many, and that's okay. I'm all for starting from scratch in 2020, and actually I started in 2019, but in 2020 I started with an earnest format of every single week I was doing a live on Instagram, and I did it for 3 years straight. I'm taking very little time off and teaching for 3 years straight. And I wanted to create a community space where, for me, I can teach and I can share insights and information. And when that really wasn't working out as I wanted it to work out, I needed to make an adjustment. And you always know when God is telling you to make a change, right? Those of you who are on, you know when God is telling you to make a change. And I knew I had to make some changes. I made some changes to accommodate the things that needed to get done. And but I knew I needed to get back to creating this community space some way, somehow. Um, I see you, Maurice. You're helping bring the crowd. I had to bring that community space somewhere, somehow back, and just it's been in my mind a lot to be back, and so I am really excited to be back. So just going to use this first live broadcast to share some quick insights into how this is going to work. I'm going to be live on the first and the third Monday of every month, and what I like about YouTube is if for some reason my schedule doesn't afford me the ability to do that. I can pre-record and I can still live broadcast. So you wouldn't know when that time is happening where it's a live stream, but it's a pre-recorded live stream. I'll definitely let you know when that's happening. But for the most part, I'm going to be here live with you on the first and on the third Monday of every month. And then, so the first Monday, which is today, is going to be a teaching day. Sometimes I will use slides, sometimes I won't. And on the third Monday is going to be a live Q&A. So what I'm exploring for that is that I'm going to, because I'm streaming through Zoom, I'm going to see if I can do a registration link. So those of you who want to come on to the Zoom itself and send in your questions that way, or maybe even ask your questions live, that we can do that. You just register and come on to the Zoom and we will do a live Q&A there. So, I'm working it out. I think when you are settled in your spirit, you get clarity. And so I'm very happy that I have clarity about how this is going to work and how I'm going to be able to serve you guys all across the Caribbean and the Caribbean diaspora. So for those of you Now we got into it. For those of you who are new here, maybe it's the first time you're seeing me, maybe you've met me through some other means and not quite sure what Night Lives are all about and who I am. My name is Dana Hayes-Burke. I'm also known as the Vision Builder. I'm a business strategist, consultant, international speaker in areas of business strategy and leadership. And I'm also a business coach. And I use this forum to equip business owners in the Caribbean and in the Caribbean diaspora to help them to build stronger, more profitable businesses. And so, to that end, when I come to these spaces, I teach in the area of strategy and I also do leadership training with you guys. You just don't know that's what I'm doing. And the goal is to help you to see your vision, believe your vision, and build your vision. Because for far too long, business owners have come into businesses with aspirations of doing things that will help them to improve their quality of life or connect to a greater sense of purpose, and have not been able to quite make that shift in haven't been able to quite make that shift in the way that they want to. So my goal is to help to contribute on your journey, to teach, to empower, to educate, to build with you. Thank you, Marisa. I appreciate your comment. So today, what are we covering today? I know I went a little bit off for a minute, but what are we covering today? Today, we're going to look at how you decide your next big business move. Because I do see a lot of people talking about their business moves, what they need to consider. I know a lot of people are experiencing quite a wide spectrum of experiences when it comes to business right now. Some of us have had things happen in our lives and we have to stall the business. Some of us have been working assiduously on our businesses, but maybe not getting the results that we're looking for. Some of us may have been getting results, but it's coming at too far high a cost for us in terms of the amount of effort, energy that we need to expend in order to consistently deliver what we want to deliver. And so today I wanted to address that because oftentimes in the private conversations that I have with folks, they're always looking for insights into what should be my next business move. How do I assess it? And then you're in a social media space that almost preaches that every opportunity is the opportunity for you. And we know that that can't be true. So with that being said, today we're going to be exploring the topic of how do you determine what is your next business move? How do you analyze strategically what your next step should be? And hopefully by just having this short presentation with you guys, I can take you through a few thoughts that you need to consider in making this decision. So if you're ready and you're on live or you're watching the replay, just drop a one in the chat or give me a little emoji that I know you're here, you're ready to go. And I'm going to share my screen because why not have some slides for the first one, eh? It's a good plan. We could absolutely have some slides for the first one. So let me just get this up and running. Thank you, Natasha. I see your one, and I think I shared the wrong thing. So let me stop that there. And hi, Kanasha. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Yes, this is that kind of live. I'm going to say hi to people because I'm very happy that you are here. And let me just get my slides up for you because we're talking about how to figure out your next business move. So when we talk about that, let me hear from you if you are able to utilize your chat. What are some of the reasons that you have been considering what your next business move should be? Because, we're always going to be, there's a reason that we explore, right? We don't just explore because we're bored. We're exploring because we're trying to figure out how can I get closer to my goal. So if you have ever been in a situation where you have been trying to figure out what my next business move should be, what was the impetus for that for you? So while you may be joining the chat and sharing exactly what that is, um, I know for a fact that sometimes it could be that you know that what you're building isn't sustainable. You may be seeing that things are shifting and you're trying to figure out how can I be a part of the shift that is happening around me, right? So that might be one consideration. What are some other considerations that you have seen or you have had for yourself? Because we always have these considerations that drive our thought processes when it comes to how do we get to the next stage and what are we building in our business, right? So there are considerations that business have had in recent times in particular. And so some of the considerations would include that sales are down. Sales are down. You might be feeling stuck. You might be feeling exhausted. Outside on the social media streets, everything is looking grand, but you know that there is a high cost and a high price that you may be paying for what you are doing. You may recognize that maybe my health is not in a good place because entrepreneurs, often overdo, right? Um, Natasha is saying here, wanting to grow the business and go from part-time to full-time, right? So you might feel stuck and exhausted. What worked before is no longer working, and that happens quite frequently to a lot of business owners because here's the deal, right? When you start off the business, you might have started off with something that's trending, but when you anchor your business on a trend, the trend changes. What happens to you next, right? Um, you're seeing a lot of new ideas online and you feel behind. And I would not lie to you. One of the reasons that I was really very slow in starting this back is because I do feel that there is so much coming at us on social media. I don't know if it's just me. Maybe I'm getting old. Could be, right? But there's so much that's coming to us on social media, and everybody has this strategy to do everything for everyone and to solve all their business problems. And the reason that I don't like those kinds of approaches is that the truth is, the strategy that is being espoused or shared by this person is a good strategy, but it will not work in every situation, or it may not work in every context. And so that's why there's no one size fits all strategy. So you might be seeing new ideas online, you might be seeing people doing great things, and you feel like you're left behind, or your business might be feeling irrelevant or stalled, right? So these are some of the reasons. And if you any of these connects with you, I don't like the word resonate, guys. If any of these connects with you, can let me know. Hi, Nicholas. Good evening. So these are some of the reasons that you might be looking for your next move. So how do you, if you are in that place where you are looking for your next move and you're trying to figure out what you should do next, how do you go through the process of evaluating? Because what I don't want you to do in a time of uncertainty and in a time of trying to figure out what's next, I don't want you to be that person who starts going off of feelings and vibes. And so one of the things that I recognize business owners do is that we often don't like inactivity. Inactivity feels as though I'm failing. If I'm not posting every day, if I'm not doing something every day, if I'm not just doing activities in order to just seem as though I have a lot going on, I feel as though I am not making progress, and I'm not doing what I need to do. So what I would like you to avoid doing is making decisions based on feelings or the need to simply just keep going. So that means there are three stages and three steps that I want you to bear in mind as you are thinking about how to evaluate your next business move so that you have a greater likelihood of success. The first thing you want to do is assess. And assessment is often the most difficult thing for a business owner to do because our business owning process and our business running process is usually an emotional process. We're very heavily invested and we're very emotionally connected to our businesses and to our vision and to what we're trying to build. So oftentimes it's very difficult for us to really critically assess where we're at. But it's important for you to critically assess where you are because that's the only way you can truly know what's working and what's not. You can even know if a next business move is what you need or if you simply need to double down on your existing move and optimize it. So you want to assess. Assess by looking at your offerings and determining are they aligned with your customers' needs? What are your customers' needs? Are the offerings giving your customer what they need? You have to look at your numbers. And guys, if you've not met me before and this is your first time, one thing, and I swear by your numbers, because feelings are not facts on any day. And this is from somebody who has feelings. I'm not a robot. But when I feel as though I am not performing well, or I feel as though my business is not doing well, the thing that helps me to really know the truth about it is to assess, right? To assess where I'm at in terms of sales, in terms of your expenses, in terms of your customers, and this last one in terms of time spent versus your return. And why am I saying that? Because if we look back at what I said in terms of this is, you might feel as though I'm not getting the results that I'm looking for. Um, Based on the time I'm spending, maybe I'm spending a lot of time, or maybe I had a lot of things going on in my life and I could not expend as much time on my business. Whichever way the pendulum is swinging, the thing is that you need to look at the time you've spent for the return on that time, right? Because if you've hardly spent time, let's say you've had a massive reduction in the amount of time you could spend in your business, massive reduction in time, but you're still very close to the income that you've always generated. Or when you look at the time spent and the income you've generated, the ratio is really good, then you don't, that tells you that what you're doing, you're not a failure, you're not low on the success spectrum. You are actually getting good return on investment for the time spent. In the same way, if you are spending a whole lot of time doing a whole lot of things and nothing is going on in terms of the return, sales, engagement, growth, visibility, etc., right? Then it tells you that, okay, there is a misalignment here. What I'm spending time on is not giving me the result that I'm looking for. That can actually, you can literally turn this into this seemingly qualitative thing into something that is factual that can guide you, right? So I like to say that because we are so hard on ourselves at times. I know many of us are hard on ourselves about what return we're getting, but just look at the circumstances of maybe the last 6 months of your business and the time you've been able to spend on it, and then assess your return based on the time you were able to expend, right? So that's a good point, right? For persons who may be part-time in business. If you are part-time in business and you're spending the majority of your hours at work, which is perfectly fine, don't let people tell you otherwise. You're spending a lot of time at work and you're spending 2 hours a day on the business, or maybe 1 hour a day on the business. So that's 5 hours for the week. And for that 5 hours for the week, you made $1,000 for the week. Come on now, you can't be mad, right? And just saying you can't be mad because time and what you've gotten, right? Maurice, I see your comment. It's hard not to feel low on the success spectrum when you are building. That is absolutely true. When you are in the building phase, it's difficult to maintain perspective. So one of the ways that helps you to maintain perspective is to check the facts. I remember there was a young lady that I was mentoring, and she would tell me that, she feels like a failure. And I said, is that feeling of fact? What do the facts tell you? And when we itemize the facts of her life and the facts of where she was and the fact of what she has achieved, there by nobody's standards or measures would she have been considered a failure. And so we have to be mindful of that with ourselves, right? And you want to assess your operations. What's costing you time and money unnecessarily? Because we out here wasting money. Boy, and let me tell you something, full disclosure. Even at this stage of running business, I still sometimes be wasting money. I have to check my whole self. And then you're like, but where is the money that I'm making? Well, you're buying stupid stuff that you don't need. So maybe you should stop that. You invested. I remember one time I invested in a course that I absolutely did not need. And I had to be checked, I had to check myself because why are you here, Dana? Why are you doing this? So step one in making the decisions, what's your next move is to assess. Critically assess where you are at a granular level. Objectively assess where you are. Fairly assess where you are. Right. So I'm seeing here the challenge is spending lots of hours on the labor-intensive business and not enough hours on the business of the business. And that's key. So again, looking at that, right? Assessing. If I were to make an adjustment, what is the adjustment I'm going to make? So assessing, how can I make modifications? So once I've assessed, and thank you so much for that contribution. Yep, Natasha is talking facts. So once I have assessed, now I need to do my research, because if you're in the situation where when I check the time, I'm spending so much time working in the business and not working on the business, which means that I'm staying in a stuck space. I now have to make a very brave choice and decision. It's a brave choice. And I'm not saying that it's brave because I want to say it, because I'm saying it's brave because I've done it. And even when I'm doing it, I'm like, Data, you are literally deciding not to work in the business, to work on the business, because when you work in the business, you get the money. So in some instances, I'm straight up deciding to not get the money. But here's what happened. In that time, you research what's going on in the industry. Do some research. What are your customers asking you for right now? Do you know? These are real key questions. And I'm not talking about talk to your friends. I'm talking about going and seeking out the client avatar of who you would like to connect with, the client avatar of that level of income that you would like to achieve, right? Per transaction. Who is that customer? And going and investigating what their needs are. Because here's one of the things, right? When you're in a labor intensive business or any business, you might get quantity of sales, but the value of the sale doesn't do much for you. And you know that you need to extend the spectrum of your customers so that you can get a higher paying customer and possibly work a little less. But if all you are doing is spending your time serving the needs only of the customer that's at this level and not working on the business to figure out how can I get the customer that will pay more, you will never get to where you want to be. And again, I'm not oblivious to what I'm requiring of you. If you are going to slow down with the existing to work on extending, it means that you are likely taking a cut in income. Now, we can't deal with how you manage that. But I'll say this, if you're planning to do that, you got to make preparations for that, right? Preparation for that looks like saving up to help manage your costs. Because costs, the bills can come no matter what, right? So help manage your costs while you are doing the work of researching. So what are the emerging needs? What are customers asking you for now? Do you have the capacity for that now? Are there tools or systems that you now need to get to help you to evolve in that area? Yeah. Thank you, Natasha. I see you. Yep. I see your comment there, hitting the nail on the head, because we have to talk through this. And that's why I like my little YouTube channel, because we need to have real conversations, not the social media clickbait types, right? So what are the tools and what are the systems that are available? What are the competencies you need to help you? Are there new tools that you might not be able to hire somebody per se, but it can equip you to do things more efficiently? Do you know your processes enough? And so you can think, okay, what tools or systems can I put in place to help me with this process so I can become more efficient in the business of my business? So you got to do the research. Really, really important. We have to do the research. These are not exciting parts of business in any way. Nah. Well, I'm boring. I like research. But for the regular person, you know what I mean? I like the research part of it. Finding the strangers that you don't know who don't know your business and getting them to give you data and getting them to give you insights and to share thoughts. So you don't want to look just at the trends. I have a problem when we build businesses on trends. And you don't want to look at what's relevant and your current capacity. It's about collecting data right now. So after you assess where I am, I collect data so I can know what's available to me in a tangible way, in a real way, right? Once I'm able to do that, then the third step now is to curate something and test. So the thing about business moves is after you've done the assessment, you see where you are, you see where the gap is, you do the research, and with the research, it allows you to do a few things. It allows you to assess your opportunities, right? I need to work on my opportunity. I may have some opportunities, but then you can look when you've done your research to see, okay, do I have internal capacity for this? What are my strengths? What are my weaknesses? What are my opportunities and threats? That's what comes in real handy here, right? Um, so I'm able to do the research, but as a micro business, as a small business, you can't just be out here flipping the whole table like, Jesus in the temple. We can't do that. We have to now try and think, okay, based on my where I'm at, what I'm doing, and based on my research and what it has shown me, what is one move that I can now curate? What is one shift that I can now make? What is the closest, most easily accessible shift that I can make that will move the needle in the key area that I needed to move? Right? So Maurice said he needs to learn a whole new skill to make things work. I'm sorry, I'm stressing you out, Maurice. Oh my God. I'm stressing you out. And this is good stress, right? So, having done your assessment and having done your research, you need to think to yourself, what is that one new thing that I can curate internally or externally that I can put to the test and deploy that is likely to move the needle in an area that I need the needle to be moved? Examples. I needed, years ago, I needed to ensure that I had a duplication for myself and for my process for people to get in contact with me and to get onto my calendar. And so I deployed a system that avoided me having to find my WhatsApp and having to find my text messages. Because if you know me, well, boy, we would have had real problems. But in order for me to do that, I needed to do the research of what people were open to, what people are willing to test, how they wanted to be communicated with, what is the experience that they need to have with me, and you create a system, calendars, different calendars that I have in play right now to help manage that process, right? That was one strategic move that took me out of working in the business of having to be back and forth messaging someone to now something is taking care of that and I can now use that time to work on my business, right? In the same way, you have to think as like, for example, Natasha, if you don't mind me using your example, right? If you're working in the labor of your business, you have to ask yourself, what in the business of my business that I need to get done? Get clear on that, right? What is my one top priority in that area? And then what is the thing that is taking the most time from me, but I could possibly find a solution for it. So in your case, a lot of the activities requires you, right? Because of what you do. But then are there other things that I can now deflect in a different pathway? Right? But is there something else I can deflect in a different path? I can use a different system, can I use a virtual resource, etc. Right? And think to yourself, well, let me test this out. Let me test this out for a month and see how it works. In testing it out for a month, I'm now going to be able to evaluate, does it work entirely? Is it working entirely great? Is it not working great? Or what are the components of this that need some tweaking along the way that is going to help me to have a better experience and get the outcomes that I want and the outcomes that the other end user needs out of the process, right? So example, using the calendars, when it started, it had certain questions, it had a certain format, and over time, I constantly tweaked. It wasn't because it was perfect at the beginning at all. It absolutely wasn't. But when you are starting to make business moves, you need to ensure that you test it out. So an example would be if you know, for example, you need to get additional support, you might be looking for a business partner. Some people at this point know I need a new partner, right? then don't just go and grab somebody at random and think, you know what, this person is a good fit for me. How about you run an event or do a collaboration with that person and see how well you work together? Because everybody sounds great before you get in bed with them. But then, right? If you are considering doing a digital product of some kind, or you're considering putting on maybe a program of some kind, then do a small pilot. Do a small pilot so you could hone it, you could refine it, because you've done the research, you know there is a need for this, so I may do a small pilot. An example would be this. Me doing this live. No matter how I ask the question, what do you all need from me? Everybody keeps saying, I want back the live. But I know I was not willing to go back and fight up with that other platform. So here we are. And for those of you who are not from Trinidad, fight up means I'm not planning to struggle. So here I am. So you keep tweaking and you keep working. I've tried to restart this a few times and I finally have a pathway forward. So the same way you pilot as much as possible, because what testing does is that it gives you your data and it doesn't just give you, well, it feels good, it don't feel good. It's not about vibes, right? And so when you are using the testing process, you're not locked in. You are genuinely trying to see how best this can work. So at the end of the day, when it comes to making your next business move, just understand this. This is the one thing I want to drive home for you. Your next move does not have to be massive, but it absolutely has to be meaningful. It does not have to be a massive move, but it must in fact be a meaningful move. And do not forsake the idea that a small move in the right direction creates momentum. So we don't want the mistake of just creating momentum and all of the wrong things by just doing things. I want you to really assess, research, curate, and test so that when you start making those shifts, you make the one small shift. That one small shift creates momentum in the areas that you wanted to create momentum. And then you will start to see all the other changes you want, that massive change you want will become basically a cycle of small changes that you have made along the way by using this three-step process that I use all the time. You assess, you research, and you test, and be patient with yourself. I should add that. Be patient with yourself because this process does not happen overnight at all, right? So that's it for my first Monday night live with you guys. I'm very excited. So here's what's happening. I had a thought not more than 30 minutes ago before I started, 30 minutes before I started. I'm going to create a quick, easy downloadable workbook with these questions that I have here. So I'm going to put it in the description on this video on YouTube. So you can download it and use that to help you go through the process of assessing, researching, and testing, so that you can go through this process and find your next move, right? What is your next move for your business? And just remember, it is not meant to be a perfect process. And so therefore, we must choose progress over perfection every single time, right? All right, guys. See you on the third Monday of this month for our next Monday Night Live. Thank you, Natasha. Maurice, I'll tell you what happens to the other platform. Bye-bye, everybody. Take care. And if you have questions, you'll have a space eventually to ask those questions. So I'll address it at our next live session. All right. And that's it. Let me stop sharing my screen.